Hello, and welcome to part two of my Star Wars PowerPoint. So, if you missed part one, I would go back and watch that because it's all kind of part of one larger thing here. But yeah, so I'm going to be talking about the next four Star Wars shows in this PowerPoint that I have talked about here. And yeah, okay, let's get into it. We're talking about Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan show. Okay, the next show on this list is Obi-Wan. And for those who haven't seen it, Obi-Wan is a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi living on Tatooine, protecting Luke from afar. He gets a call from Bail Organa to help bring his kidnapped daughter Leia home. Obi-Wan does. Some drama happens. Inquisitors are looking for him. He has two confrontations with Darth Vader. He gets Leia home safe and also becomes less depressed and gets his mojo back. Obi-Wan is an interesting case for me because the first time I watched it, there was absolutely nothing that I enjoyed. I hated literally everything, and I think that was a symptom of Star Wars fatigue that was really bringing me down. I hated everything because it just reminded me that Star Wars was going to keep making these half-baked, unnecessary TV shows to try to capture the same popularity that Mando Season 1 had. And that is absolutely still the case this time around. But I found some things that I did enjoy. Now, before everyone jumps down my throat, the moments I liked were few and far between. But there were a couple moments that I liked that existed, so this time I don't think the entire show is pointless, just most of it. The show is far too long, and it's only 6 episodes. It really should have been a movie at most, and honestly, a short film probably could have worked too. The thing is that Revenge of the Sith ended with no loose ends. We know exactly what Obi-Wan was up to for the 20 years in between movies. So there wasn't exactly a lot of room for the show to work with. So making a 6 hour long story in this time period that has very little wiggle room to make something because it is so constrained by canon and is far too long and leads to most of the show just wasting time. And some decisions that make no sense and only make the show longer. But I honestly have a lot of complaints to make throughout this show because there were a lot of moments that were bafflingly stupid. So I'm going to go through them all. First, I need to draw attention to everyone's. Okay, I need to draw everyone's attention to how similar the opening theme music of this is to the PS4 Spider-Man music. I don't I don't know. So this is supposed to be the Obi-Wan theme music, and then this is supposed to be the Spider-Man theme music. I guess the video of the Spider-Man theme music got taken down. I didn't know that. I've made this a year ago, and the Spider-Man theme music was working great. Um, so if you're curious, pause the video, look up the Obi-Wan theme song. Just listen to the first like 20 seconds, and then look up the PS4 Spider-Man theme song and listen to the first like 20-30 seconds. They sound very similar. And you're just gonna have to trust me on that, or you're gonna have to look it up. Uh, but yeah, I don't know why the video got taken down. Anyway, so the first scene that we get with the Inquisitors in Obi-Wan is when they're in the bar and it's really clunky and awkward. And I need to note that throughout, the sets in Obi-Wan look really cheap. The production value is weirdly really low in the show, but I gotta hand it to him. Tatooine and Mos Eisley do look appropriately dirty in comparison to the Boba Fett show. So I guess it has that going for it, which is an insanely low bar. The Inquisitors really go fucking off on this bartender, which is really weird. They're like, oh, we know you're keeping a Jedi here. Don't lie to us. You served a Jedi, you rebellion sympathizer, motherfucker. But I really don't get that argument because it is incredibly easy for a Jedi to hide. Jedi do not have anything visual about them that is immediately recognizable outside of a lightsaber, which is also incredibly easy to hide. So yeah, maybe this bartender did serve a Jedi, but how the fuck would he know that Benny Safdie is a Jedi? He looks and acts like a regular guy. And if you don't have the Force, or if you don't have the Force, then there's literally zero way to tell. So I have genuinely no idea what their game was here, because unless they have a specific person in mind, regular people on Tatooine are not going to know what a Jedi looks like, because a Jedi is just a person. The special effects throughout the show look mostly bad. There are some moments where it looks okay, but a lot of the time they will go for this smudgy or unfinished look, which is ugly and shows me that this show was a rush job. And even some environments look really bad. Okay, like I know this picture isn't the best quality, but like look at the background. The quality drop is not like getting rid of any details that exist in the background. It is smudgy and gray and it looks ugly. Okay, so you're gonna have to indulge me a little bit when I go in depth about Obi-Wan's part-time job as a worker in a meat factory. Because I have so many questions. Number one, who is buying this meat? We don't see anyone on Tatooine eating meat at any point in the movies. Obviously, Star Wars isn't known for its conversations around the dinner table, but still, that's weird. And okay, we see that the meat is being sourced by this big whatever creature here. What kind of business model is this? Because there clearly is not a farm for these big creatures, and there can't be that many on Tatooine. And also, having this kind of business on Tatooine, of all places, with limited supply in an outdoor factory in a million-degree heat, is just a horrible idea. That meat is going to go rotten in 2 seconds. I seriously doubt there is much regulation on the quality of food items within the galaxy. That would be far too big an operation to ever realistically be accomplished. So, why make this meat cutting place so disgusting? That meat was rotten and definitely had sand and worms in it, despite the fact that that is the fakest looking plastic meat I have ever seen in my life. If they are harvesting from whatever animal is shot here, then that can't be a good business model either because it can't be consistent. This isn't Kaiju number 8 or Attack on Titan where there's these big ass creatures all over the place. We've spent so much time on Tatooine and we've never seen anything like this big before outside of Mandalorian. And those guys are like, you know, a myth, a legend. You see a skeleton in A New Hope, and then you see the actual sandworm in Mando. But this is different. This is not a sandworm. This is like something completely different. But you see what I mean when I say this is the fakest looking, most plastic ass like meat? That looks like something that I would have as a kid that would have like Velcro connecting the pieces of meat that you could use a toy knife to cut. Okay, anyway, in Boba Fett, we see Mando go to an actual meat locker to arrest a criminal guy. So you can't say that all meat processing factories look like this, or that this is the only meat processing factory with shady connections, because the guy Mando meets were doing things by the books because they were in a temperature controlled fridge with proper equipment. So then I ask again, who is this meat for? Because I'm sure that the owners of this factory can afford to make a refrigerated building, or are they, if they are married to the outdoor factory concept, maybe moving it to a colder planet? And they can still exploit their workers by paying them 2 cents a day. I seriously doubt that anyone in the Empire or on Tatooine cares enough to make sure that this facility is not exploiting their workers. There are no labor unions here. Why do these guys want to spoil their product? Because I do not buy the argument that this is cheaper in any way. There are no larger animals on Tatooine that I have seen that could provide a consistent meat source. They certainly aren't selling on Tatooine because everyone is poor and cannot afford meat. Where did Obi-Wan get that leaf, by the way? Unless this is like a piece of leather. I thought it was a leaf when I wrote this, but then I showed it to someone and she said it looked like a piece of leather. So maybe I'm wrong about that. I will take the L there. But also, why is he only cutting himself off a tiny sliver of meat? That is nowhere near enough for a full meal. And yes, I am thinking way too much about this. Yes, this is literally just supposed to be a shitty job that Obi-Wan has that is obviously shitty to show that he is not fulfilling. He does not have a fulfilling life on this planet. But I don't appreciate the lack of consistency in meat distribution. I was going to make an OSHA joke, but then that feels weird because of the acolyte. If you're going to make a shitty job for Obi-Wan, you got to think a bit. I would honestly be less mad if he was packaging spice in some dude's basement. Allow me one American history joke that no one will get. Okay. Where's Upton Sinclair when you need him? He needs to write the Jungle Tatooine edition. Okay, thank you. I'm done. But yeah, I really don't understand what they're going for here. Like, I like this is just a very bad business model. Anyway, so when Obi-Wan is in his cave being sad that Lars won't let him hang out with Luke, a Jawa finds him and comes to deliver parts, which I find really funny. Are the Jawa like Amazon on this planet? They can even deliver in guys to caves who don't even have a real address, though. So Jeff Bezos needs to up his game, or the Jawa are going to come for his bottom line. I also need to say that the city on Alderaan that we have seen looks like dog shit. That is not a real place. You cannot fool me. And it also looks exactly like Zaofu from Legend of Korra, so I guess they stole it from them. Like, yes, this is like futuristic. I know this isn't like, they're not like reinventing the wheel here. They're not trying to be anything new, but like it really does look a lot like Zaofu. It really does. Okay, and then also everyone has clowned on the Leia chase scene throughout the forest, which would feel disingenuous if I didn't bring it up, because yes, it is really bad and it looks like the CW. Obviously, the guy running into the tree branch is whack as fuck. Why did this guy's costume look so bad too? Like, why did they want this guy to wear a neon orange and yellow shirt? How does that scream discreet kidnapper? Like, that looks like a costume. Also, I showed this to my mom, and I think she said that was Flea. Cannot attest to that. But why did they make him wear that? Unless it's like a specific reference to Flea, which I wouldn't know. And if it is, then I guess like ignore all this. But still, I don't like his costume. Okay, obviously, all the complaints that I've had so far stem back to the writing. The writing is frustratingly corny and just full of bizarre decisions. There's a lot that's awkward and weird, but I will say that Ewan McGregor is doing a very good job. In fact, most of the actors are doing a good job. Most of my complaints, again, are with the writing. Okay, so Leia is kidnapped, and then Bail Organa calls Obi-Wan and is like, "Can you please come rescue her? We're gonna break down we're going to break down why this is a baffling decision on Bail's part. Number one, Obi-Wan has been out of the field for 10 years. He has been living in a cave, working a shitty job. He may not be on his A game. Number two, Bail specifically says that he calls Obi-Wan because he doesn't want to draw attention. Draw attention to what? Why would Leia's kidnapping be an inherently bad thing? Is he saying that he doesn't want to draw attention to himself? In that case, how would that even be possible? Would Imperial investigators come and be like, let's see your accounting books, Bail. Who is this guy named Mr. Rebellion that you keep giving money to? Wouldn't the Empire like a feel-good press story about how they do good work? They don't start this knowing that the Empire kidnapped her. Please use the Senate's resources here. Number three, please hire a bounty hunter or a tracker. Bail says he can't trust Leia with anyone else. Buddy, you got really lucky that Obi-Wan got his mojo back here. You can vet bounty hunters and find a good one. They absolutely exist. That's kind of a bit in Star Wars, actually. Okay, so then we find out that Reva planned this this whole Leia kidnapping, as a way to draw Obi-Wan to her. We are going to break down how this is a baffling plan. This is bonkers. Number one, her reasoning is that Bail and Obi-Wan were homies during the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan had a couple conversations with him during the war. They were mostly coworkers. They didn't really know each other until the end, and even that was a small conversation about how to split up the kids. They were not best friends. Why in the world would she assume that Bail Organa would not go to the Senate, hire a bounty hunter, or call literally any of his other friends? She doesn't make it obvious that the Empire kidnapped Leia, so going to them for help would not exactly be a bad decision. She is banking on Obi-Wan and Bail Organa being such good besties that he absolutely has to go to him for help. Number two, she is banking on Obi-Wan going out of retirement to help his old buddy Bail Organa, a Jedi who her beef with is that he abandoned children at the Jedi Temple to die. If this is her perspective, then why is she so confident that he will inconvenience himself to come and save a kid, when she believes that his track record is not wanting to inconvenience himself with the lives of children? Number three, she is assuming that one of the most popular senators in the Empire has no other resources other than an old, retired, very much in hiding Jedi, that he is so short on allies that he has to go to the guy he knew from the war. Reva has to make so many insane leaps of logic in order for this plan to work. And somehow it does. And then when Obi-Wan finds Leia, the pirates who kidnapped her are like, wow, the Inquisitor really figured you out. Bro, she got insanely lucky. This literally would never work in real life. Also, a lot of the planets look really boring and similar. There is a planet that they go to that literally just looks like California, and I'm sure that's what it is. They keep doing that in these shows where they just need some generic place and they want to shoot on actual location, and then they just go to middle of nowhere California, which all looks similar. But like, come on. Really, this is really boring visually. I also really don't like the way that Leia is written. Her actress is doing a fine job, but the people who wrote her must not know how kids sound because she just sounds like an adult. I know a point of the show is for her to be really smart and mature, but when she talks and acts like that, I don't feel like she is mature. I feel like no kid would ever sound like that, no matter how smart they are. Kids can be smart and still act like kids. Look at the kids from season 1 of Stranger Things. They are all 11 or 12, but I feel like those kids are smart and capable, but also that they act their age. And Leia's supposed to be so smart that she sees a wanted poster for Obi-Wan and immediately assumes that he is the person who kidnapped her. So Leia thinks the plan was that Obi-Wan hired these pirates to kidnap her. He would kill those pirates and lead her away from the secure and secret building, lead her away and lead her throughout the city trying to find a ship to leave, and that would be the true kidnapping. Not that the people who kidnapped her want her back. Is Leia super smart and can figure out anything, or is she not? And the show also does the thing that keeps happening in Star Wars of recent. There's a dangerous bounty hunter who learns to take care of a kid. There's a group of misfits who learn to take care of a kid. There's a retired guy who learns to take care of a kid. It's really like they saw the success of Mando season 1 and were like, okay, let's make everything else similar to that, but also not understanding why that season was popular in the first place. Okay, this is also when we get to the aspects of the show that I like. I do have a couple things that I like, so I should mention them. I like when Obi-Wan gets to talk about his feelings to Leia and Vader. We get a couple conversations throughout the show, and those are absolutely the parts where I'm actually fully invested in what's going on. The prequels are famously not really interested in giving the characters actual real human emotions or the ability to express themselves like real human people, and Obi-Wan especially doesn't get much material that allows him to truly express how he feels in those movies. This show gives him that in small doses. I like when he talks to Leia about his parents, or sorry, about her parents and how he feels about them, and we get to see his sadness within that in a subtle way. I also really like that we get to hear him talk about his family and his parents and his brother before he became a Jedi. I think if this show was a slow, boring character study that let Obi-Wan be really sad, then I would be way more into it. The only part of the show that actually works is when it slows down enough to actually focus on the character's emotions, because that is something that we haven't really seen that much in Star Wars. As a certified slow slice of life enjoyer, maybe that's just me shouting into the void, but if we got something with a truly glacial pace that was really focused on character, then I would be very happy. Give me frustrating naturalism. I understand, though, that I would be the only person that would be happy with that. So that's just me. However, this is my PowerPoint, and I'm going to say what I want to say. Okay, the first fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan is cool until the end. Them actually fighting is kind of slow, but like whatever, that's okay. They're both old. But then the end of the fight is really whack. Vader lights a fire and then drags Obi-Wan through it. Fine, cool. But then Ilaria Martell, that's not her actual name in the show. That's who she plays in Game of Thrones, and that's what I call her in my head. I don't know what her name is. She shows up, and then the fire goes out. She lights a fire in the exact same place, but for some reason, that is too much for Vader, and he's stuck. I don't get it. Like, bro, you can put out the fire, or walk around it, or go above it. Vader uses the Force quite a bit in the show, and I feel like there are a million solutions to this issue, but I guess he's just too stumped by a fire that he didn't set himself. It's really, really strange. Uh, I don't know why he did that. Okay, another weird and clunky way that the show delivers information is that Obi-Wan is talking to Ice Cube's son and is like, "You have no idea what the Empire is capable of." Yeah, bud, good call on that. A leader in the underground network working to smuggle people around the Empire and an active part of the rebellion definitely doesn't know what the Empire is capable of. And that's obviously just a setup so that Ice Cube's son can tell him his tragic backstory to him. Like, great, thanks, guys. Really didn't see that one coming. It's just clunky and awkward and out of character for Obi-Wan. And we see that, like, kind of clunky and awkward dialogue quite a bit throughout the show, but this is kind of just one obvious example of it. Okay, episode 4 gets a lot of hate for good reason. Yes, Ilaria Martell just kind of smacks a stormtrooper with her bare hand and knocks him out. Yes, Obi-Wan smuggles Leia out under his trench coat and no one suspects anything, and it looks stupid as hell. Yes, there is that weird clearance gate that has a ton of empty space on either side that would be very easy to avoid. Yes, the interrogation scene is incredibly awkward and weird, but it actually has some really cool set design. Yippee! I actually really like the green and blue lighting. Most of the shots on Vader's hangout spot was actually pretty cool. But we see here that the Empire actually hired some cutting edge architects when they were thinking about their underground fortress, or sorry, their underwater fortress, which I really appreciate. And for that, I want to send Darth Vader a personal thank you note from me to him. I want him to know that his effort and propensity for interior design didn't go unnoticed. Again, I'm sorry that this isn't the best quality. I don't know why that happens, but it's like, I don't know, you can see, like, if you watch the episode, you can see kind of how much more visually interesting just the sets are in that part than like the rest of the show. So I gotta shout it out. I got it. Okay, I have mostly avoided talking about the worst character in the show until now, but it feels like an appropriate time to bring it up. I talked about her a little bit, but mostly like the one kind of plan that she made. Riva makes so many bad decisions that I felt like I was going crazy. She is supposed to be capable, but she is the worst victim of bad writing in this whole show. Her actress is doing a good enough job, but when some of the lines are so weird, she can't save them. We are going to go through her bad decisions together, outside of the one that I already talked about earlier. She keeps having conversations with characters where she somehow picks up on so much information that is not given to her. Like when she talks to Kumail Nanjiani for the first time and she's like, okay, you're not a Jedi. That's a fine assumption to make. But you do know where one is. Girl, be so fucking for real right now. What are you talking about? How did you figure that out? His vibe? And don't say the Force because that's dumb and we've never seen it used like that. She's like, he literally gives her zero to work on. It's very strange. She then has a conversation with Ilaria Martell and is like, I can tell that you're lying to me, but I can't tell if you're lying for me or against me. She has literally no reason to suspect her of lying, but she just somehow figures it out. She then interrogates Leia and decides to ask her questions. And then when Leia doesn't answer them, she gets frustrated. Like, babes, did we forget that we can use the Force? Like, why would that not be the first thing that you tried? She then wants to torture Leia. I feel like she needs Uncle Iroh to yell at her all the time because she always does these things and she doesn't think ahead. She has Leia and then she has no idea what to do with her. Is she going to torture a senator's daughter and then what? Return her to her dad? Is she going to kill a senator's daughter? How are you going to cover that? Because I feel even in the Empire, while they have a Senate, they might have at least a little pull. And if one of the Inquisitors tortures and or kills a senator's 10-year-old daughter, that would probably not go over well, even just for optics. Because accusing a 10-year-old of treason might not hold up super well, actually. Okay, her commitment to taking down ships is pretty minimal too. When Obi-Wan and Leia go on a ship in episode 2, she is very close to it and is taking off, and she just kind of yells at it. Jump, bitch! We've seen that there's so many different paths to taking down a ship. We see Anakin do it all the time. She also lets Obi-Wan go in episode 4, which I don't buy. She also gets really frustrated when it leaves and yells at it. I need to hold her hand gently when I say this. You can use the Force because she definitely doesn't give a fuck about the rebels. She wants Obi-Wan. In episode 5, when they're trying to get into the rebel base, Reva lets the stormtroopers shoot at the door for probably 10 minutes with their big gun before she just cuts the door open. Like, why not open with that? She also wants to kill Vader in this episode. So for some reason, she opens up to Obi-Wan through previously stated closed door about how she was a youngling and Anakin killed her friends right in front of her. Okay, cool. But why is she telling Obi-Wan this through a door with a bunch of stormtroopers right there? She also executes her plan to kill Vader in this episode. She's been planning this for years. Her big moment that she's been waiting for patiently is that she just yells and goes for it. Really? That was your big plan? That took all these years to plot. This was the right moment? She is incredibly impulsive and makes all these bad decisions, but it doesn't feel like that's supposed to be a character trait because if that was supposed to be a character trait, then that would be okay, just like Zuko in Avatar The Last Airbender. But that's not the case. She was supposed to be capable and imposing, but she just never is. Then Vader kills Reva and leaves her on the ground. Is Qui Gon literally the only character in all of Star Wars who has actually been killed by being stabbed with a lightsaber? We see that the Grand Inquisitor isn't actually dead, too, which is dumb, but whatever. Then Vader stabs Reva and then just leaves her on the ground. And then she just happens to be right next to Obi-Wan's phone that he gave to Kumail Nanjiani for safekeeping, that he promptly dropped, that just happens to be open to the right voicemail, that Bail Organa left him that just happens to be broken in the right way for all the information that Reva would need to find Luke is playing. And Bail just happened to leave a voicemail where he spells out all the information that Obi-Wan would already know, just so that Reva can find it and know where to go. Like, come on. Come on. All of episode 5 is also really weird. Ilaria Martell suicide bombs herself when she didn't really need to do that. If she had this huge, gigantic bomb, then why didn't she use it when everyone was gathered in a small area outside the door? And then why did she suicide bomb herself so far away from any stormtroopers? Bitch, throw the bomb. The rebels then go to escape the hangar, and Vader decides to stop one ship from escaping. Then a second leaves, and he doesn't choose to stop it or even try. One ship is apparently fine, but two? Now that's too much for him to handle. Obi-Wan surrenders to Reva just to talk to her, just so that he can escape again. But he could have just not surrendered, and literally nothing would have changed. Him and Reva do not really need to have that conversation. It's just all these decisions that characters make that make no logical sense at all and feel like they're just wasting time because they need material to fill up an episode. The one episode that people actually generally like is the last episode of the show, and I will agree that is the best one. It is not good the whole way, but it does feel like the most fleshed out overall. The best scene of the episode is the Vader and Obi-Wan fight. The planet that they were on looks ugly as shit. I love when my planets look like gray sludge, but the conversation that they had was nice, and it gave them this nice bittersweet closure. It was pretty cool how that was done, but I really don't get why why Obi-Wan would just walk away. He finally accepts that Anakin, his friend, is dead, and then he just walks away. Dude, Vader is still responsible for so many deaths, and he will continue to kill people. If Obi-Wan has accepted that his friend is dead, then why in the world would he spare what he has become? Does he spare him as a testament to their previous friendship? Which doesn't make sense because Obi-Wan just agreed that it was over. But then Obi-Wan leaving him alive allows him to literally kill an entire planet, including his supposed bestie Bail Organa, so that seems like a major L to me. I know obviously that Obi-Wan can't kill Vader because they're both alive in A New Hope, and Darth Vader says that Obi-Wan won the last time they fought, so Obi-Wan has to win and neither of them can die. But the fact that Obi-Wan has to win and neither of them can die just feels like it's preserving canon and not doing what the character would actually do in the situation. Canon absolutely is so restrictive with this show because so many of the characters already have their places so well established during this time period. And then we get to the all bad part of the episode with Reva. She tracks down Owen / Luke because all you need is a first name and a planet, and that's your address, baby. She then goes to the farm or whatever, and Aunt Beru pulls out the secret guns. Where were those when the stormtroopers came knocking in A New Hope? But it's also weird that Beru and Owen hold their own against Reva. Isn't she supposed to be an incredibly strong Force user? Yeah, okay. She takes Luke and walks away and then is like, I'm gonna kill him. And then she's like, wait, no, then I would be a child killer like Vader. And that's her redemption. Bro, please be so for real with me right now. How does she think that killing Luke would draw Obi-Wan? Why would she not camp out near their house and wait for Obi-Wan to come around and then attack him? Why is killing Luke in her plan at all? That literally gets her nothing. She has no idea that he's Vader's kid. She's just like, oh, Obi-Wan knows this kid exists, so I'm gonna kill him. Babes, how does that allow you to achieve any of your goals at all? But no, we do it so that we can get a redemption arc, something that we desperately needed for this character. Awesome. While I am watching these shows, I take notes on my phone that I will use as reference later when I'm writing out my full thoughts for this. And most of my notes for this show are questions that start with why, which I'm sure you've picked up on, because I truly, honestly have no idea what the writers were thinking with some of these decisions. When I don't like a show, I feel like the way I write about it is much more scrambled and tangential than when I have mostly positive things to say about it, or if it's more of a mixed bag. It's like I can't help but be wrapped up in frustration and then I let it all spill out here. I don't necessarily have a thesis statement or a big overall point I'm trying to prove. I just really need to point out how bad the writing and production design are, and how this show is the biggest example of Disney not knowing what people liked about the first show that worked, or even how to best deliver the material they have to an audience. This show has generally mixed reviews overall, which goes to show how even the biggest reference to an OG isn't enough to make a show liked by everyone. While I did find some things about this that I enjoyed, this is probably like that is probably like four conversations, whereas before I found it entirely devoid of merit. So I guess that's an improvement. Okay, we made it. You guys, we made it. Word Andor. Finally, we made it. Finally, we have arrived at actually a really good show. When I got to watch it again for this, I let out a big sigh of relief because I finally got some good fucking food. Andor is a miracle of a show because when a show about Cassian or Andor was announced, a character that absolutely no one was asking for any more material on, I was extremely skeptical because this feels like Star Wars making a show about anybody and everybody because they see this as the most financially lucrative thing to do. And like Disney likes to do, they flood the market with as many things as possible. Quantity over quality. I wasn't even going to watch this show because it seemed so lame in concept, and I had hated so much of what Star Wars had done up until this point. But when the first three episodes came out, that was when I was working as a teacher, and the other guy that I was working with that day was telling me how he hated Obi-Wan and that he loved the first three episodes of Andor. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And oh man, am I glad that I watched it. This isn't just good for Star Wars. This is a fantastically compelling show, period. It feels like a real TV show, along the lines of other real prestige TV. And if you think I am sucking this show's dick too hard, I will provide receipts later on. Um, but it was nominated for Emmys for a reason. This show is the real deal. I will note though that Ahsoka was also nominated for Emmys, so that line that I wrote there doesn't have quite the weight that it had when I initially wrote it. But it's still impressive that it was nominated for Emmys. Um, but its biggest strength by far is its writing. For some reason, this show also looks fantastic, which is shocking, considering the Boba Fett and Obi-Wan shows look like shit. You would think that the show about the character that isn't popular, or anywhere near as popular as Boba Fett or Obi-Wan, would look even worse. But no, this show actually looks fantastic. For those who haven't seen the show, Andor is about Cassian Andor many years before the events of Rogue One. It's about how he gets involved in the rebellion. The show is split into four arcs. Number one is kind of the introduction and escape from Ferrix. Number two is heist on Aldhani. Number three is the prison arc. And number four is the conclusion / rebellion. I will not be getting to any spoilers because so many people have not seen it, and I don't want to ruin many of the best moments of the show. The show's biggest criticism is that it has a slow opening. While I agree that it is slow, I don't think that it's a negative. I think that people complain that it is slow as a fault of expectation because these shows typically do not give too much setup or are patient with the introduction of people setting things or settings because most of these shows are either pretty simple or have places or characters that don't need introductions. The Mandalorian is a relatively simple show. I have said that before, and I think it's the strength of the show. All of the setup that we get for Mando as a character is in the first scene, which gives us all the information that we really need in an entertaining way. Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, as characters, do not need introductions. So when we start these shows, it's mostly about catching us up to where they are now. Both of them are on Tatooine, which doesn't need an introduction as well. But with Andor, I think Tony Gilroy knew that an audience needed to be convinced to care about Cassian, his friends, and his home. So, whoa, sorry. So the show is more patient with his setup than any other Star Wars, and I believe that is absolutely a strength. Because from the beginning, you can tell that the show has the fucking sauce, and that you just need to let it cook before you get to the payoff. And one thing about me, I will be endlessly patient for a good payoff. When you watch something like Game of Thrones, you expect it to be patient, especially in the early episodes of the show. And nobody complains that show starts too slow. It's all about expectation and history. Cassian Andor is such a good character in this show. All of the characters are really good, and I would say that the best characters are probably Luthen, who's played by Stellan Skarsgård, and Kino Loy, played by Andy Serkis. But the titular character being really compelling is obviously central to the show working. Cassian makes decisions that you may or may not agree with, but throughout everything, you always understand why he is doing what he is doing. You become really invested in his arc of going from someone who doesn't give a shit about the fight against the Empire and only cares about himself and his loved ones to someone who is fully invested in taking down the Empire. The show is doing something new, and I love it. A character who is put in bad situations and makes complicated decisions, I need that injected right into my veins because I am obsessed. One choice that is consistent throughout the show is that there are very few aliens, which is a choice that I actually like. This is telling a far more mature and human story, so grounding the story with human characters is actually a really good choice. This helps make everything in the show feel like it has more gravity. You don't have some goofy looking alien guy that takes you out of the gravity of the action of the show by looking just kind of funky and a little weird. These are humans committing these acts against other humans. Star Wars is not especially known for its good writing. Even in the originals, you have some stuff that is a little goofy, but that is a part of its charm. And then you have some truly awful writing in a lot of Star Wars projects. Between some of the insane shit that they say in the prequels, not talking like real people, Anakin and Padme talking on the balcony of their apartment on Coruscant, where Padme is like, "Wow, I love you so much," and then Anakin is like, "No, I love you more," and Padme's like, "So love has blinded you?" And then the sequels also have some crazy bad writing choices. Somehow Palpatine returned. Yeah, real banger with that one, fellas. I've pointed out the bad writing in Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan. Spoiler, Ahsoka and the Acolyte also have bad writing. Bad writing is unfortunately extremely common within Star Wars. So when Andor actually gives us genuinely good writing, it feels like you were a pig who has only seen mud your whole life, only to be tipped upwards and see the stars for the first time. You don't know how bad you have been treated until you see competent writing and what it actually looks like within the context of Star Wars. So I talk about how I'm gonna show a clip from the show, which I'm not gonna do for this, just because I'm scared of YouTube copyright. But if you want to look it up and watch it as kind of like a teaser for what the show is, just look up like Luthen's speech. That's really all you need to know. And it's not really a spoiler. I wouldn't really consider it a spoiler for kind of what's to come. But if you need like something to convince you to watch it, look that up. It's awesome. Okay. So, that is one of the best speeches in Star Wars that I have ever heard, and it wasn't even the most emotionally affecting moment from that episode for me. The show is different from everything else in Star Wars because of moments like that, but also because it takes its premise seriously. It asks questions that would be realistic to ask. How does the rebellion get its money? What would the people who started the rebellion have to go through? How would you actually hurt the Empire? What would the Empire's internal offices actually look like? Or, sorry, the internal officers actually do? What would the bloated beast of the Empire actually be capable or incapable of? Yes, it has the reputation as being the adult Star Wars show. That doesn't come from it being edgy in any way. It comes from these very mature ideas that are being explored. One of the themes that is explored in the show is leading others to a better future that you cannot attain for yourself. We see this very clearly with almost every character, that despite the pain and torment that the Empire has put them through, they want to die fighting back rather than giving in to what they want. The people in the show are not ones that we know within the larger Star Wars canon. What they do will not make them famous. They die for a future that they cannot see and that no one will thank them for. This is a mentality that Cassian himself sees throughout and what is eventually becomes his fate in Rogue One. The people that we never hear of in these stories are the ones who make everything possible. This absolutely seems to be a facet of Star Wars that Tony Gilroy finds interesting because Rogue One is centered around that same idea. No one asks for the story of the people who stole the Death Star plans, but it is clearly something that intrigued him. And it is an idea that he takes further in Andor. And it is deeply compelling as it explores Star Wars that we have never really talked about before. The heroes without fame or reputation. We all love Luke Skywalker, but how many people died so that he could accomplish what he did? Rogue One starts to ask the question, and then Andor elaborates. The show also really shows the weight that a fascist government will have on its people, the gravity of a small group of people actually wanting to fight back. At this point, we aren't at war yet, but we are building up to it. We see the sacrifices of the few and how we never hear about most of these people and anything else. They are all working for a sunrise that they will never see and have made peace with it. The characters all feel like real people, and the Empire has never felt so intimidating. You actually understand why a rebellion is necessary, but how risky it is for everyone involved. For some reason, the show also looks insanely good. The environments, CGI, and everything looks top notch. It is crazy that the Andor show would look better than the Obi-Wan show, which was a show that really needed to look good. The cinematography looks incredible. There will be shots in the show that just knock you on your ass because of how good it looks. I wonder if they were given enough time to actually make the show that they wanted in Obi-Wan. Could they have made it look better? Which, is why Obi-Wan looks kind of the way it does, was because it was rushed. I don't know. But I kind of compiled some really good shots from Andor. And you can just see, like, I don't know, how cool they are, and just how this is different from a lot of what we've seen before in Star Wars. Um, yeah, it's just really, really cool. I have a very difficult time writing about this show because I don't want to talk about spoilers in case anyone hasn't seen it. I don't want to ruin the best parts of the show because it is genuinely so wonderful. I also have a difficult time writing about it because I don't know how many times I can say the writing is good, the acting is good, the cinematography is good. Everything here is genuinely so good. The show really speaks to me as a genuine enjoyer of the art form of making television and movies. People criticize the show by saying it's not Star Wars enough, which I think is stupid. There's no Jedi or Force in the show, and it's more grounded than any other Star Wars, but it is still strongly Star Wars. It is really creative in its execution, and it is so good. I feel like a broken record. There's only so many times I can say that the show is good. When I write about something that is bad, then it's easier to talk about why it's bad. And also, I have the express goal of only showing a PowerPoint to people who have not seen the thing that I'm talking about. I want everyone who has not seen the show to watch it. And more of the people that I'm showing this to haven't seen it than those who have. I haven't taken as many notes while I'm watching this show because I'm just genuinely enjoying it. Even though I've seen it before, I find myself being sucked into the story that is being told to me. This show is smart and treats its audience as smart too, unlike some shows, which I will get into later. When I say this is a real show, I mean that it isn't a show that just exemplifies Star Wars ideas really well, like Clone Wars or Mandalorian, two shows that, I have a very soft spot in my heart for. You need no background knowledge to watch this show. I would say maybe watch Rogue One, but since the show is a prequel, then I'd say that it's optional. As long as you have seen at least one original and know who the Empire and Rebellion are, then you're good. The only character here who we have seen before is Mon Mothma, who is in Return of the Jedi for 5 minutes before she left, and she's not really that important in that movie. One of the best things about this show is that there are consequences for the characters' actions. Shocking that this has become the new standard for Star Wars shows. Everything has a purpose here. In the opening scene of the show, we see Cassian go to a bar, and then two guys harass him and follow him out. We expect this to be a heroic introduction to our titular character, but one of the guys accidentally dies during the fight, and the other guy has to make the switch between anger to begging for his life, only for Cassian to kill him. We see that this is going to be a very different show, because this is the inciting incident for the entire plot of the show. The deaths that these two nobodies actually has weight to it. It starts with this whole investigation into Cassian that just completely snowballs into being something much bigger than it originally was, which is very refreshing. In Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, people will be stabbed and not die. Things don't really matter that much. There's very little that changes from the beginning of the show to the end. In Boba Fett, he starts off as the leader of a crime syndicate and ends as the leader of a crime syndicate. Obi-Wan has to devolve a little bit so that we can get to the same point that he was at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Wow, Obi-Wan forgets he can fight and use the Force, but then he remembers. So he's literally back to where we left off at the end of that movie. At the end of Revenge of the Sith. Andor shows Cassian going through significant change as a character, and it's really refreshing to see. What's crazy about Mon Mothma in this show is that her actress was originally cast for Return of the Jedi, not Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, sorry, to be Mon Mothma in some deleted scenes. Then she came back to do a couple scenes in Rogue One, and now in Andor, she has a really meaty role that requires a lot of acting chops, and she does fantastic. It's crazy that an acting role that she had in a couple deleted scenes almost 20 years ago could lead to this kind of role, but it's honestly really cool for her. We see so much of her family drama and the lengths that she will go to for the rebellion, sacrificing herself and her daughter for the good of the galaxy, making decisions that are really nuanced and difficult so that she can secure allies and funding. This is one of two Star Wars projects that has actually made me cry. The other was the end of Clone Wars, which was explicitly sad and also something that I had been watching since I was 8. This made me cry because I was just so moved by one of the scenes at the end of the show, which is kind of my MO. I cry all the time when stuff moves me. It doesn't need to be explicitly sad. But this was also really sad and also showed the indomitable human spirit in a way that I found really moving. And in typical Andor fashion, I cried because it had a really great speech. My trademark is that I will cry when things just move me, and I was genuinely so moved by the ending here. I want everyone to experience that. So if you have a passing interest, or if I inspired you here, please, please go watch Andor. Give it a chance so that we can get more Star Wars of this level of quality, as it is few and far between. And I haven't even mentioned the prison arc, which is literally some of the best TV that I have ever seen, not just Star Wars. This is the best Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back, and I'm not joking. Hell, it is some of my favorite science fiction. Please, God, let season 2 be good. As I am recording this, season 2 is going to premiere in like 3 weeks. I'm really excited. I'm also really nervous because I really hope that season 2 is as good as season 1. I really want it to be good. I really do. Okay. Good stuff's over. Now we gotta talk about dog fucking Dookie. Ahsoka. Okay. I watched Ahsoka when it first came out, watched about 20 minutes of the first episode, and then turned it off as I hated everything that I saw. However, my friends bullied me for weeks for not giving it enough of a shot, and that it was fantastic. I'm going to call you guys out. Sophia, Devin, and Riley, this is your fault. This is your fault that I made this. No complaints, okay? So I did watch it, and spoiler alert, I hated it just as much as that first episode. So in order to get even with my friends who had bullied me into giving Disney Plus one more stream on this stupid fucking show, I wrote up my stream of conscious thoughts about everything that was happening on screen and how much I disliked it. I have since organized my thoughts a bit more for this presentation. However, it is still written more stream of consciousness than I typically would do for a review like this. I feel the need to state that I have not seen Rebels, but I have seen Clone Wars. As I have not seen Rebels, I don't know who any of these characters are. I don't know who Sabine is. I don't know who Ezra is. I don't know who Hera is. And I most importantly don't know who Thrawn is. Who is he? Doesn't fucking matter. The show does not do a good job of making you care about anybody because it is banking on you already liking them. This makes the show not stand up on its own merits if it is relying on other shows' content to make you like the characters. If a show must consistently reference something else, something to remind the audience that it's a good show, then it does not stand on its own. In one of the early episodes, Sabine is training and she has the little floaty ball thing from A New Hope, referencing Luke training, which really made me roll my eyes really hard. Like, seriously? Are we really at this point where we gotta reference the Luke training with the ball? Really? That's all we got? Okay. Ahsoka herself is nothing. She is a nothing character. She acts more like Yoda than a person. She is stoic, calm, composed, which again, I already talked about in Boba Fett, but I need to kind of bring this up again here. The epitome of go girl, give us nothing. She is monotone. She is a shell of a person. Why is Sabine her apprentice? Why do they care about Ezra? Why is she finding a map from an ancient Jedi society that's a map to Thrawn? Like, why does that matter? We are not shown that Thrawn could be a threat or cause any destruction, so why do I care? They tell us that he is a threat, but every time he tries to kill someone, he fails. So why should I be intimidated by him? Why is Ahsoka involved in the New Republic? She hated the old one. like, I mean, I guess she didn't really hate the old Republic. She hated the Jedi, but it's still kind of like one thing, you know? Or she didn't hate the Jedi, but, you know, they didn't treat her very well. And neither did the Republic. So why is she so involved with the new one? It's very strange. But also, look at these pictures. She is making the exact same face in all of them. Like, she's giving me absolutely nothing at all times. Can we get some emotion, please? Like, this one is from Mandalorian, too. Like, literally nothing. Nothing. Sabine sucks. She is weak. She is a nothing character. Nothing of any consequence happens in the show. Sabine cuts her hair to remind you of who she was. She cannot act her age. She peaked at 16 and desperately wants to get back to that even when she's, what, 30? That's really sad. Why is Ahsoka digging up the old bones of a robot she met maybe twice? Oh, because it's a reference. Because you like Clone Wars, right? That's a good show, and this one must also be good because it is referencing the show that is good. The set design is also really bad. Uh, Sabine looks like she's driving the fucking five through Bakersfield in this first episode. Like, I couldn't find a shot of like the exact moment from the episode, but it's like it's literally like her driving on what looks like a highway through like brown grass. It's really ugly. The city also looks very computer generated. Nothing feels real or authentic. And look at her face here. So 2014 in Tumblr. Actually, it's annoying. Sabine doesn't even feel real. Who is she? I don't know. She's rusty, but also she wants to be Ahsoka's apprentice. Why? Why was she a hero to Mr. Krabs? In the city that she was in, it's like she's getting this medal of like for doing something for the city, and the mayor is the voice of Mr. Krabs. So that's why I'm saying, why was she a hero to Mr. Krabs? Because like she's getting this medal, but we don't really know what she did or why. She doesn't want to be a hero. She's edgy. She's different. She lets her nail polish chip. But also, oh wait, she actually does want to be a hero. She wants to appeal to Ahsoka. Again, why? Oh, I didn't watch Rebels, so I wouldn't know. What an empty show. A show that has no merits of its own outside of references to other works, because those ones are good. Remember Luke Skywalker? Remember Clone Wars? Remember Rebels? Remember. Who is Balin? Who is his apprentice? Doesn't matter. I know who the Night Sisters are. Who are they in the show? Oh, another reference that is meaningless outside of the reference itself. Who are the bad guys? Why do they want Thrawn to start another war? Very empty. Oh, so now there's a different galaxy. Why? Why does this matter other than to up the stakes in an entirely arbitrary and pointless way? Oh, did you know that there's another galaxy now? Whatever. That literally doesn't matter at all. Any stakes feel paper thin at best. Sabine gets stabbed, but oh, she's strong, so she's okay. Because nothing means anything in a Dave Filoni show. No one gets hurt too bad. No one leaves for good. Everyone comes back because, oh, you love that. Another glup shitto cannot die. Before anyone argues with me, yes, I know Kanan dies in Rebels. That is one guy. I'm like, there are so many people who do not die when they should die, and like everything else, or like a bunch of the other Star Wars shows. So I'm not using Kanan as like a Kanan is an exception to the rule, not something that is a consistent pattern that we see. Now there are space whales. I don't know what they are. I didn't watch Rebels. Do they matter in the show outside of a reference? Of course not. Does the show exist to be its own thing, its own story, its own value? Of course not. It exists to remind you of other things, because isn't that what Star Wars has become? Empty reminders of something else from your childhood. Clone Wars is good because it exists on its own merits outside of reference. It references to enhance source material, to be its own thing, to be creative and risky and weird. I hate hollow, empty references. To be reminded of other things doesn't trick me into enjoying what I'm watching. Oh, Thrawn is the heir to the Empire? What the fuck does that mean? Everything looks like a costume. Everything looks fake. Ahsoka says she wants Sabine to be herself, but then criticizes her when she's not a good enough Jedi. She's not a Jedi. She has like one old shriveled up midi-chlorian in her. Why is she trying to make her something that she isn't? She's not a Jedi, which is literally fine. Not everyone needs to be a Jedi. Oh, Hera had a son with Kanan. I wish that meant something outside of a reference. Hey guys, remember Kanan? You remember him? You like him? The only praise that I will give the show is that the cinematography and set design improved a little bit over time. By that, I mean that the one planet with the red trees didn't look bad. It actually looked kind of cool. But everything else does look bad. But, it's kind of a thing, one of those things, it's like, of course, Balin knew Anakin. Of course he did. Shots go on for way too fucking long. The show is designed for you to watch while you're also on your phone. The fight cinematography is really bland and boring. Everything looks rehearsed. Shots take too long. There really isn't a story. Nothing takes actual thought. I thought Balin might be a character from Rebels because he feels like a reference, not a real character. I'm tired of characters not really being characters, being nothing. I don't know Sabine, and this show doesn't make me like her. She's weak, very weak. Oh yeah, I bet Ahsoka's actually dead. Oh no, I'm quaking in my boots. Why does Hera bring her 10-year-old son to a literal battlefield? Is it bring your son to war day? And then, of course, he says I've got a bad feeling about this. Okay, so look at the shots of these guys in the mountains. Remember in Lord of the Rings when the Fellowship sails by the giant statues of the old kings? A beautiful scene that shows us the weight of legacy in this world, reminding them that this fight has been going on forever. A monument to Gondor, a once great kingdom that has fallen from power, even more so for Aragorn, someone who is actively running from his legacy in Gondor as he is a direct descendant to the kings depicted here. Especially since one of the kings is Isildur, the person directly responsible for Sauron not dying, which is a huge foreboding issue for everyone, especially Aragorn. It is a really powerful moment of true beauty and storytelling. When the little boats go through there, everyone remembers the scene. It's really cool. And then look at this guy here in Ahsoka. This is very clearly referencing the stuff from Lord of the Rings. And who is it? It's a stupid reference. It doesn't mean anything outside of the reference to Clone Wars. The father, son, and daughter have a really great story in Clone Wars, but literally do not matter in Ahsoka at all, which is really annoying. Just fuck off. I really hate the Clone Wars flashbacks too. Clone Wars was never this direct, never this in your face about her and Anakin's relationship. Anakin being like, oh, we have to lose some lives to win the war, and I'm teaching you to be a soldier. Just do not feel like things Clone Wars Anakin would say. He and Ahsoka also weren't two dead fish talking to each other. But Ahsoka isn't like, oh, what if I don't want to be a soldier? We knew that's how she felt. In the Clone Wars flashbacks in the show, she very explicitly is like, what if I don't want to be a soldier? It's like, Ahsoka never explicitly said that in Clone Wars, but we felt that. We knew that's what she was feeling. We knew Anakin's dilemma. He resolves it in early season 1 about taking in an apprentice. Ahsoka becomes disillusioned with the council, but not the war, until presumably later. We already fucking went over this too. What benefit is it to Ahsoka's character? Is it to have these Clone Wars flashbacks? To clumsily deliver the main idea of that show? No, it's to remind us. Anakin needs to go down and walk on memory lane to, what, approve of her? We didn't need that. Her whole thing with Anakin meant nothing. It added nothing. It showed us nothing. Just another hollow reference. It was supposed to, what, complete her arc? Which I think is stupid because she did not have an arc in this show. She doesn't care in the beginning and she doesn't care in the end. She does not feel tormented by not having Anakin's approval at any point before this, which is really dumb because in Clone Wars, she has Anakin's approval. When she leaves the Jedi Council, it's not like, Anakin is trying to tell her not to leave, but he says, hey, I understand more than you know why you're making this decision. I understand your frustrations with the council. But what he's saying in that moment is he's saying, hey, don't leave me. I like you. I want you to stay around. I want you to keep being my apprentice. But her saying, like, that the Jedi Council was too much, that everything that happened with that was, they completely lost her trust. And, like, there's nothing that needs to go from there. Like, and then in season 7, like, they kind of have a conversation where Anakin, like, gives her the lightsabers, or the like modified lightsabers that he made, which is really sweet and shows that she had his acceptance. That, like, even though, he understands and accepts her decision to leave, even if it's not something that he would want. And then when he sees her again, he gives her the modified blue lightsabers, which in a way is kind of him being a little bit controlling because he's like changing her colors to match him. But it is something that is at its core meant to be a genuine expression of care, of love. And you know how he feels in that moment, and you know how she feels. There is no bad blood between them. Like, sure, it's a little awkward, but they still have a lot of love and care for each other. So it's not like Anakin was withholding his approval of her. He gave it to her in Clone Wars. Like, we see him time and time again give her his approval. So I don't understand why the show was like, oh, we need to show that through these flashbacks that Ahsoka needs to work through her, like, acceptance of Anakin, because she already, like, got acceptance from him. And I know that there's like that one thing, whatever, in Rebels where Ahsoka fights Vader, and that's like moving or whatever. But like, it's not like Ahsoka wants approval from Vader. It's the approval from Anakin that matters. So I really don't understand, like, her arc didn't need to be completed. It already was. It already was completed. Like, I really, and then, it's not like she's going through a new arc in this show. It's like, it's not like she needs to learn to care for others. She already does. We see that in Mandalorian. It's not like she's like needs to care about the fight, because she already does. We already see that in Mandalorian. So it's like the show is not like teaching us anything new about Ahsoka's character. It's not giving her anything new to kind of accomplish. It's it's very strange. And like, if you want to argue, like, I don't know, especially because like Ahsoka herself is very disinterested in everything that's going on. Okay, back to it. Back to it. The one episode that I enjoyed slightly was episode 6, mostly because this dude has a very cool costume design. Although I will say that I only say this because he is in a bad show. In a good show, he would be out of place and over designed. But in a boring as shit show, it's kind of a shot of adrenaline. I swear I woke up from my coma when I saw him because it was something weird, original, and new. And especially with the stuff with their armor, how it's the gold and like the connected. I don't know what that's called. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but the Japanese kind of pottery thing where you mix or you fix pots with, or like pottery with this kind of technique. That's cool to bring to the like ghost stormtroopers. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Okay, so this whole thing has been very stream of consciousness, but this is going to be even worse, and I apologize in advance. Okay, so in episode 7, there was the dude who was like, Hera is out of line. The dude on the council, the dude in the Republic, who's like, Hera is out of line and using her authority for personal gain. And she definitely is, and she would absolutely abuse her power for personal gain at the drop of a hat. What she's doing here in this situation is she's going to the leaders of the New Republic, and she's like, "Hey, we got a map to Ezra, so we need to get him out." And this dude on the council is like, "No, that's not relevant to us. We don't need to do that. And you're also abusing your power by choosing to do this because you are a general in this army." And then she's like, "No, I'm not. That's really unrealistic. Like, or that's really unreasonable of you to say that to me. And I'm not abusing her power. I'm not abusing my power," when she 100,000% is. Like, that's a personal mission, babe. Not something that the military wants. And in fact, the military would actively dissuade you from doing that. So, yes, she is abusing her power. She's leading this stupid mission to get Ezra back. And also, the C-3PO reveal was really obnoxious. Droid racism was really weird. Leia sticks her neck out for motherfuckers that she doesn't know at all just because she's someone that we know. It's like a reference. They're like Hera's in the room with the other Republic people, and then like Leia on uh, hologram comes in and is like, no, it's fine. Let them do what they're gonna do, which is like, okay, whatever. Um, Hera is a bad military leader. The lady was like, how real is this? And Hera, like, how real is this rumor that Ezra is out there? And Hera literally gave the most non-answer ever. Who's like, I don't know. Like, and then they find Ezra. I'm kind of doing a little bit of explanation because I realize how stream of consciousness this is, and you need a little bit of context. So they find Ezra. So they jump through time and space and they go to this new galaxy, which literally doesn't matter at all. Who cares? And they find Ezra, and like Sabine sees Ezra, and then Ezra's like, I never thought about how much I missed. Bro, you've been gone for like over a decade. What are you talking about? You didn't think about how much you would have missed. You've been literally by yourself with these weird little alien guys. And you're telling me you didn't think about their friends or the lives that they were living, and you didn't think about how much you would have missed? Okay. And then Ezra also asked the most logical question. Hey, Sabine, how did you get here? How did you find me on this in this other new galaxy that was supposedly impossible to get to? And Sabine is like, I don't want to talk about it. And Ezra's like, okie dokie. What? like Ezra like Ezra made a sacrifice as a child. He made this big sacrifice to lock himself and Thrawn away in this new galaxy to like keep Thrawn out of the galaxy. And then he sees his friends again and is like, hey, how'd you find me? And then Sabine's like, I don't really want to talk about it. And Ezra's like, that's actually totally chill with me. You just completely threw my sacrifice out the window and opened a gate for Thrawn to leave, which you didn't wrestle with at all, by the way. You didn't wrestle with that decision at all. But, if you don't want to tell me, like, how you got here, that's fine, girl. You do your thing, girly pot. Really? Really? What? That's really weird. It's just... But also, Ezra has... I watched a little bit of Rebels. I didn't watch all of it because I didn't like it at all, but I did watch a little bit, so that's kind of what I'm using to base this off of. But Ezra didn't change. He was in exile alone for at least 10 years, and he's just chilling. Like, I feel like if you were in exile, like self-imposed exile with nothing but these little alien dudes to keep you company, I feel like that would probably change you just a little bit, like just a little bit. And he literally like is the exact same, which is so lame because it shows that the show is really afraid of change, which is like I don't know how they can get away with that, with like doing something so similar to how he was when you have this situation that is obviously how things would change. But Ahsoka fucking yeeted herself out of the ship like it was nothing. They take a ship to the like new galaxy, and then she just kind of like it's kind of funny. Like I realize you won't understand the reference if you haven't seen the show or you don't have a kind of the clip playing right in front of you, but it was kind of funny that she just kind of like she just yeeted herself out of the ship. Also, Ezra acting like a fucking bonehead does nothing to endear me to him. I don't know him. I don't like him. So him trying to act like his old self, who he was when he was a teenager, hey bro, that doesn't make me like you. It actually makes me dislike you. So can we grow up a little bit? Thanks. And bro, Thrawn was impressed by the Jedi, but like Sabine is literally very lame. She's not a very good fighter, which is fine. Again, I need to state that it's fine that she's not the best using a lightsaber. But the fact that they win here, because they beat Thrawn, they don't die. That's how they win, is they don't die. And Thrawn's like, I've got it. I have the plan. That's fine. I'm gonna kill these guys. I am so smart. I'm so smart. I'm gonna These guys don't know it's coming. I got like 3 different plans. And they like outsmart him because his plans were dumb as fuck. And he's like, I tip my hat to you, Jedi. Yeah, you're actually really smart. Um, what? Really, these guys? These guys. That's what did you in? If these are the guys who did you in, then I don't buy that you're intimidating or threatening. Not even a little bit. Okay, on to episode 8. Again, I will fill in context for what I'm talking about here. Everything is very stilted, very lifeless, very boring. Sabine is boring. Ahsoka's boring. I know I talked about this. But how would Ahsoka know? Okay, so she talks to Sabine about how being a Jedi is more than just wielding a lightsaber. But also, how would she know that? She is a soldier trained by a soldier during war, and then everyone died. There's more to being a good person than wielding power. With great power comes great responsibility, yada yada. We've heard this before. Ahsoka was taught to be a good person despite being in a war, not to be a good Jedi. Anakin isn't interested in the morals of the Jedi, and Ahsoka has spent most of her life not being a Jedi by this point. She has learned a great deal about her own moral code through experience. She walked away from the stifling rules and codes of the Jedi because when it came down to it, they were easily manipulated and she was abandoned. Because the audience holds the Jedi on a high pedestal does not mean that Ahsoka does or should. She has gained so much presumed life experience that is solely her own. And for some reason, the show tries to tie everything that she has learned back to the Jedi. They are not the ones who taught her right from wrong. Anakin did, who, again, was very different from a traditional Jedi and did not listen to a lot of the traditional Jedi code. She also taught herself. Countless other people she has met throughout her life have presumably taught her. It pisses me off that instead of doing something creative and in line with where Ahsoka would actually be, they decide to take the most boring and safe choice, making her into what we expect of her instead of challenging the audience's preconceived ideas of what she could be. Cal in the Fallen Order and the Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor video games is truly finding his own way in the galaxy, still listening to the teachings of his 2 Jedi masters, but ultimately becoming a good person first and a Jedi second. He falls in love, he makes decisions that may or may not be what the Jedi would want, but in a world without that kind of expectation, he just becomes more than just a cookie cutter Jedi. He values his attachments and it ultimately makes him stronger. So why wouldn't Ahsoka have become something different, something more like Cal, even, or, something entirely her own? Why couldn't her life experience contributed to the person that she becomes? Because that requires the show to stray from what is expected from you, the viewer. And oh, we don't want to take any risks. I really don't like what happened with Ahsoka's character. Okay, I literally couldn't care less about anything that happens in the show. I do not care who lives or dies. And more importantly, the show doesn't seem to care. I feel like there should have been some dilemma about Sabine deciding if it is worth it to open the passage to Ezra, because it is also opening it for Thrawn. But nope. Ezra makes this big sacrifice to seal himself and Thrawn away, and Sabine completely disregards it, but also he doesn't give a fuck. None of Ezra's friends seem to grapple with the idea that letting Ezra out also means letting Thrawn out, because they like their friend, who we as an audience don't know. Ezra is not upset at all when he sees Sabine, despite her actions making his sacrifice insignificant. I remember watching the show and holding out hope that they would do something interesting with him, that maybe he would be mad when Sabine showed up. Okay, brief aside. Remember in The Dark Knight when the Joker makes Batman choose between Rachel, his personal attachment, and Harvey, what is best for the city? And Batman chooses Harvey? And when Harvey sees that Batman has come to save him, he gets really upset, because then that means that Rachel is going to die for him. And both Batman and Harvey have to deal with the guilt of that decision by valuing the good of the city over what they individually would want. Wouldn't that kind of dilemma be far more interesting to grapple with in this show, in Ahsoka? But no, this show is an interesting and upsetting expectation. Sabine and Ezra are friends in Rebels, and we don't want to do anything that would challenge that, because viewers will want to see the two of them being friends again. So again, they make the safe, boring choice that ultimately keeps the status quo intact. You can tell that I did not like this show at all. This whole thing is mostly me just being angry at every decision that they made. The show being as bad as it is feels more personal to me than other bad Star Wars shows, because Ahsoka's my guy, you know? She means a lot to me as a character, and she is so good in Clone Wars. She has such an interesting arc that is really slow burn, where she slowly but surely grows up. She gives Anakin so much more depth as a character simply by existing, but the fact that she herself is also a cool character is really rewarding. My investment in her as a character felt really worth it. And then she becomes too popular and she can't stop showing up in stuff that is just subpar than her own, including her own show. Rosario Dawson is lifeless and dull, which does nothing to enhance the lifeless and dull writing. This feels like a disregards the character that I have loved since I was 8 years old. But love for her in Clone Wars is what inspires the wrath that I feel here. I'm sure most people don't feel quite as angry, probably because the show doesn't make you feel anything. So this is me going over the top, but it does come from a place of love. Clone Wars Ahsoka, you will always mean the world to me. I'm so sorry that this is what happened to you. Okay, I made these slides a year before I made the rest of this. And looking back on these, I was like, Jesus Christ, I was really pissed off. I don't know if I've ever written anything that's angry before. I mean, it certainly captured how I felt at the time. I also have since edited this quite a bit to be a little bit more comprehensive, because it was literally just me being like, this is stupid, this is dumb, this is stupid. Like, so I did try to like assign a little bit more of a narrative to what like my anger was coming from. Uh, but yeah, it's I was pretty upset. I was pretty pissed. Okay, we are now on to the last show in this PowerPoint. Woo. The Acolyte. Okay, so now that The Acolyte has officially finished, which again, I wrote this right after The Acolyte finished, which was last year. My thoughts about the show changed a lot throughout the time that the show was airing, but just to give an overall summary, I did enjoy the show. I think that there's a lot that can be improved on, but it ultimately came down to the fact that I was entertained the whole time. I was always looking forward to episodes that were coming out, especially in the back half of the season. I do think that the show peaked with episode 5. That was definitely the best episode. I would like the show to get renewed. Wah wah, RIP. Because I think there are a lot of interesting ideas and dynamics that they set up in season 1 that absolutely have room to explore more in a season 2. The show gets a bad rap for several stupid reasons, like breaking up canon, but I enjoyed it. However, I would not recommend it to everyone. And I will be spoiling the whole show here. Just a warning. So, to those who have not seen the show, in general, summary, The Acolyte is a show that takes place 100 years before The Phantom Menace, looking at a time in history when the Jedi were very powerful and there was no war. The show is complicated, so this is long, but I swear that this is the bare bones summary. And I'm giving a bare bones summary here while I haven't really gone in this detail and other stuff because nobody that I know has watched it. Or, sorry, except for my Star Wars friends. And I really need everyone on the same page here to kind of understand my criticism that I'm talking about. So we focus on identical twins, May and Osha, who are both played by Amanda Stenberg. May is a Sith going around the galaxy killing specific Jedi for a reason that we don't know yet. We see that Osha is a former Jedi but left the Order and has been doing semi-illegal mechanic work to make a living in the meantime. When May starts killing people, the blame is initially placed on Osha as no one knew that May was alive. The Jedi hunt Osha down and eventually recruit her to help look for May and stop the killing of the Jedi. We soon find out about May and Osha's childhood through 2 solely flashback episodes that give us 2 different perspectives on the same day. May and Osha's, as well as the Jedi who were there. We learn that May and Osha are from a coven of Force witches. We see them at 8 years old and learn what the childhood was like, as well as who their mother was. A lot of the story focuses on this. I won't be going into too much detail here, but it is complicated. But basically, there are Jedi stationed on this planet to investigate a divergence in the Force. That's kind of what they call it. They find the Coven as well as the children, May and Osha. One Jedi in particular, named Sol, takes an interest in Osha and wants to train her as his Padawan. He argues with the other Jedi that they have to be trained by the Jedi because they are Force sensitive. Shit goes down. The Jedi and May and Osha's mother fight. Sol kills her. May starts a fire after attempting to keep Osha from leaving and becoming a Jedi. All the other witches die. Osha leaves with Sol, and May is presumed dead. May is actually picked up by a mysterious Sith who trains her in the ways of the dark side so that she can exact her revenge on the Jedi who killed her family and took her sister. The Stranger, who is the Sith dude, who is played by Manny Jacinto there, gives May increasingly difficult ways to kill the Jedi as a test to see if she is truly as powerful as he thinks she is. However, when she is tasked to kill a Jedi without a weapon, she fails, and the stranger comes to kill all the Jedi and May for failing him. The stranger kills almost every Jedi. May escapes, and he takes Osha. Osha spends time with the stranger in his little cave house. They kind of start flirting a little bit. The stranger offers to teach Osha the ways of the dark side because she has a lot of untapped potential. She declines. Osha gets a force vision where her sister is Osha and the stranger take her off her homeworld. Shit goes down. Everyone fights. May tells Osha the truth about the death of their mother. They make up. Osha kills Sol without a weapon. She agrees to train under the stranger. May has all of her memory of Osha and the stranger wiped from her memory with her permission. Okay, so I had very low expectations for the show going into it. Reviews weren't good, and Star Wars doesn't exactly have the best track record with shows like this. And there's a lot of stupid stuff in the show. I say I enjoyed it, but I would say that this show is more of a mixed bag than something that is straight up something I enjoyed. So, for my own sense of peace, I will be talking about some of the stupid stuff that I have organized into a numbered list, like my queen, Jenny Nicholson. Number 1, why the hell is her name Osha? That made me laugh for a while because I was like, damn, you really had a character named after the government organization? The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, has been around for a long time and specializes in safety at work. They even say that her full name is Varosha. Like, just call her that. At least it's not a government agency. And I was going to make a joke about there being railings at the Sith cave hideout, but then I realized that OSHA was there. So Kymir, who's also the stranger, really set those up for her just because her name is about safety. Wow. Okay, number 2, they really used the evil twin trope. It was a surprise that May existed. We did not know about her in the beginning of the show. So you're like, oh, why did they think that Osha did this? Like, or why did the Jedi think that Osha was the one killing Jedi? Maybe she did do it. And they're like, no, she has an evil twin. Like, okay, guys, let's be so for real right now. Number 3, I thought they were going to do the whole Dante and Virgil thing from Devil May Cry, where one twin is evil and kills their mother with fire. I was goofing on that bit in my notes, but we later find out that May just caused property damage, not actual death. I was also making Sephiroth jokes. So for those keeping track of anime video games where someone, through technicality here, in the case of Sephiroth and Cloud, is related to the protagonist and kills the main character's mother with a fire when they're young, I'd have 2 nickels. Yes, for the sake of the joke, I am saying that Sephiroth and Cloud are semi-related through Genova and Mako. That is quite a bit of a stretch, but hey, it's all for the joke. It's all for the joke. Okay. My numbers are wrong. Number 4, Osha has a job where she breaks OSHA guidelines. A character with the same name as the agency that specializes in creating safe regulations at places of work has a job where she does very dangerous, illegal physical repairs on a ship. Number 5, Tommen Baratheon looks Amish as an adult. Why does he do that? Also, sorry, if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, Tommen Baratheon is from Game of Thrones. I call people by their Game of Thrones names. Number 6, Osha is under suspicion of killing Carrie-Anne Moss, the Jedi that we see in the beginning, and that when her and her old Jedi homies go looking for Tommen because they believe he is the next target, Osha just wanders off on her own to go find his dead body. Stellar thinking skills when you are under suspicion for a crime, just sneaking away from the cops to find yourself at the scene of the very crime that you were there to prevent. Number 7, Osha's nickname is Oshi, like the cold towels that I have to make it work. Also called Oshi towels. Osha is not beating the stupid name allegations. Number 8, Osha and May's mother has a British accent, but her children do not. Number 9, May is 8 years old. She learns that her twin sister may be leaving her to join the Jedi Order, something that Osha wants for herself. May's first instinct is, yeah, I'm gonna kill her so that she can't leave. Really solid logic here, especially for a young child. If she tried to kill the Jedi, that's fine, but why kill your sister? I have a lot of issues with the logic in episode 3, but we later learned that a lot of what we saw here wasn't true. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the issues in logic were meant to sow doubt in the audience to the story's authenticity. Number 10, Osha and May are supposed to be identical twins. They are played by the same actress as adults, but they are played by 2 different actresses when they are children. And they are not identical as children. I really don't know why they chose to do that, especially because them being identical is actually very important to the story. Number 10, they gave Chimera, the stranger, this incredibly cool fight where he is killing Jedi in really creative ways in episode 5. And then he just gets carried away by a big bug at the end of the fight because Osha planted a flashlight on him, and then that attracts the big bugs, which is really stupid and makes me think he is less intimidating. Number 12, in House of the Dragon, you have these identical twin brothers who are Kingsguard and on opposite sides of the civil war with the Targaryen family. Criston Cole sends the brother who works for Aegon, the king, to impersonate his brother and kill Rhaenyra, who is the rightful ruler. Yes, I am Team Black. Everyone is. Aegon hears of this and thinks it's genius. Otto, who is Aegon's hand, is baffled by this decision and thinks that it is the single dumbest thing ever. The plan obviously doesn't work. The show wants us to think that it's dumb. Then in this show, May cuts off her hair and impersonates Osha so that she can get to Saul and kill him. That plan was seen as the work of two idiots in House of the Dragon, but is meant to be taken seriously here. And I had just watched the episodes like a day apart, and so I was like, wow, this is really crazy. I'm seeing the same plot twice. Okay, number 13. The Jedi are kind of dumb. They seriously think that Saul is the guy killing all the Jedi when he is a target too. He also has no motive and no opportunity. Dumb as fuck. But I also think that maybe that might be on purpose. So that's kind of half a point. Number 14, we later learn that May and Osha are actually one person who was split in two by their mother, who manipulates the Force. Now, I am not a big fan of Force mumbo jumbo, so I may be biased, but that is really fucking stupid. What the fuck are you talking about? They could just be powerful? Chimera could just be interested in them because he sees potential? You could even have them be made of the Force to explain why they are so powerful. That's also dumb, but not quite as dumb. But no, they had to do this. Very weird. Also makes the decision to have them played by two twins, but not identical twins when they're children, doesn't make any sense at all because they are one person who is split in two. Why did we do that? Okay, number 15. I'm not really emotionally invested in any of these characters. Most of the enjoyment I get from the show is from shit being really cool, which is very valuable. But for most of the show, I was not very engaged with the characters. Again, that falls back on the writing, even if I think that the story is interesting and can't make us care about the characters. Number 16, the acting in the show is not great a lot of the time. Some people do good, like Manny Jacinto, but then Amanda Stenberg is okay sometimes and sometimes not. Lee Jung-jae, who plays Sol, learned English for this role, and you can kind of tell that he isn't fluent in English because sometimes the way he says stuff is just flat. Okay, when I look back at the notes that I took for the show, a lot of what I thought at the beginning of the show is very different from how I feel at the end. I was far more negative at the beginning. However, I was optimistic that the show could be cooking cool, something cool, and it was, but not all of it was cool. My biggest issue with the writing is with the writing because it was very clunky. It is awkward, cliche, and just not great for most of the show. The one thing that deserves praise throughout the entirety of the show is the fighting. So I have two clips here. Again, I'm not going to show you them for fear of copyright, but if you watch the shows, then you'll know what I'm talking about. The fighting in The Acolyte is far more dynamic and interesting than the fighting in Ahsoka. In Ahsoka, it's very stagnant. They're literally just standing there, especially in this scene. And then this one, they're moving all over the place. They're doing stuff we haven't seen with lightsabers. It's very, very cool. Okay, so the fighting in The Acolyte is extremely dynamic, interesting, and entertaining. Everyone is fighting in a way that I have never seen Jedi fight before, which is really sick. I would venture to say that it looks like the action was inspired by anime. I feel like that really dynamic way of fighting is something that I have seen a lot in anime. That has been something recently picked up by the West. We saw it in Puss in Boots 2, where that action was clearly made by people who had grown up watching anime, so that they could make action that looks sick as fuck. Anime that uses swords feels like a good comparison. So when you look at the way that fights feel and stuff like Demon Slayer or Bleach, they all have powers too, but their fighting is dynamic in similar ways. While anime is obviously more exaggerated, you still see some of the same general ideas. The Acolyte really prioritizes shit looking as cool as possible in fights, which is a commitment that I can get behind and really appreciate, which has been the golden rule of anime forever, which is why Solo Leveling is as popular as it is. The Acolyte has some of the best action in any Star Wars, and I'm being very serious. So when you see the shit that was used in Ahsoka, you really have to wonder how these people can defend the action that looks like that in that show when we have the action in The Acolyte. Okay, the thing that works the most with this show is Jason Mendoza. That is his character's name in The Good Place, and I call him that for a little bit. His name is Chimere, slash the stranger here. He kind of goes by the stranger, but his real name is Chimere. He is so fucking cool. The way he fights is cool. He's trying to rizz up the camera every time we see him. He's incredibly interesting, and I love what they did with him. And as a certified Reylo enjoyer, I really like him and Osha's flirting. He really leans into the seduction to the dark side, which I think is really cool. And the fact that we see them holding hands at the end is really cool. I really liked kind of the romantic tension between them. It creates this really interesting dynamic that we haven't seen in Star Wars before, where the guy on the dark side wants the woman to join him and she actually listens. Osha being corrupted by, Osha is being corrupted, but it is being shown as a good thing, which is, I think, is really cool. I really loved her arc in the later episodes. I also loved Osha and May's relationship at the end. They have this really satisfying catharsis where they fight, but they realize that they are wrong. They talk it out and finally have each other's back, only for May to sacrifice her memory for Osha and Chimere so that her sister can finally be happy and make a choice for herself, which is kind of like making up for their childhood. But also, that Osha is free from the burden of her past. I really liked that a lot, and it was genuinely moving to see them make up and then be torn apart again. This time by choice. May approving of Osha going with Chimere, even though he betrayed her because she knows it will be good for Osha, is really sweet. It's really funny. My notes about the first 4 episodes are largely negative, except for the action. And then the ending 4 episodes, my notes are mostly positive. I'm curious if a rewatch will make me like the first 4 episodes more, since I kind of know where they're going. The absolute best thing that the show does is that it activates my lizard brain. I am someone who, when I see good romantic tension, become insane. I love that shit. Osha and Chimere scratched that particular itch in my brain. So when I say I wouldn't necessarily recommend the show to everyone, the part that I liked the most is mostly related to lizard brain, which is not something that appeals to everyone, which is completely fine. I like both Osha and Chimere as individual characters, but together they create a really interesting and unique relationship that has so much more potential in a season 2. Wah wah, RIP. I would also say it has a rough start, which can be difficult to recommend to people. But even during that rough start, I was largely entertained. It was really well done. Once you get used to the way that people talk, which is very awkward, then you can see the story that they are telling, and it's a good story. But the show is seriously bogged down by bad dialogue, but the actual story itself is mostly good. Then Jason Mendoza shows up and actually has some really good dialogue, so I guess he is the favorite. The emotional arcs are all get really satisfying resolutions. We get crying while holding a lightsaber. What more could we ask for? Another really interesting thing that the show does is that it looks at the Jedi as an institution through a critical lens. It makes you question if the Jedi practices are actually right, and if the way that they have access to a lot of unchecked power is good. Venestra is the leader of the Jedi at this time, and we see that she actively hides crimes to benefit herself. That is really, really interesting. That could be something that is explored in later seasons as well. The show also looks really good most of the time. The cinematography and shot composition is really good. It's not Andor, but it does look good a lot of the time, so it's not, Obi-Wan or Boba Fett. The CGI also looks pretty good. Not to keep bringing up House of the Dragon, which doesn't really matter to anybody but me, but season 2 of House of the Dragon was airing at the same time as The Acolyte, so I kind of mixed the two together in my brain. I watched episode 5 of House of the Dragon on Sunday, and then the Acolyte finale was on Wednesday, so I was watching them really close together. But the place where they film a lot of the scenes in House of the Dragon, that is supposed to be the Riverlands and the area around Harrenhal, is the same places where they filmed Brandok, May and Osha's homeworld. So when May crashed her ship into Brandok in the season finale, I was like, wait, is that the Riverlands? And then I Googled it, and both were filmed in North Wales, so I was right. Got me thinking, it would be really funny to have May crash her ship and then Caraxes or Sheepstealer show up. I would put my money on the Jedi winning that, I would put my money on the dragon winning that fight over the Jedi. Okay, my feelings about the show are kind of complicated because I think that there are some things that are really good and some things that are not. So I guess this is kind of like The Last Jedi of Star Wars shows, though I do like The Last Jedi more than this. Hot take, I know. It gets the romance, but some of the other plot lines range from iffy to bad, which is like Last Jedi. I think the show absolutely has reviews that are far too harsh. Star Wars fanboys are generally an insufferable group, but when you weed out the racists and the sexists, and you also have people who cling to canon so tightly. People were shitting their pants and losing their minds when Ki-Adi-Mundi was in the show because, oh, he shouldn't have been born yet. That was canon established in a DVD extra of The Phantom Menace. Not exactly the most concrete thing ever, and it literally doesn't matter at all. Why do people lose their minds? Okay, no, this is not the worst Star Wars show ever made. Far from it. Isn't it? It is also isn't exactly completely good either, but I absolutely think that the fixes are pretty easy to make and also easy to fix in a season 2. RIP. Like if a season 2 of Boba Fett comes out, I suppose I'll watch it, but it would be the equivalent of doing a chore that you really don't want to do. Anything more that comes out from Mandalorian is gonna suck. I'm really not excited about the movie that's coming out next year. This is a show that I really want more for. So I really hope that they see what worked in the season and work on it for later stuff. A lot of the issues that I have with the show are absolutely fixable, so I really hope that they fix them in a potential season 2 RIP. I also really hope we get to see more about the origins of a modern form of the Sith, because is something that we haven't really gotten to, which could be really cool. There is a lot that could be cool, so we just have to see if they actually follow through on that. I hope the pitfalls of the season are just kind of like blips for a first season. But please, please give us better dialogue. That is the biggest issue. Okay, so when I wrote that initially, we didn't know if season 2 was going to be renewed or not, and now we know that season 2 is not happening, which is a bummer. The show wasn't great, but it also had a lot of potential. We aren't letting shows cook anymore. They have to be great immediately. If we had that mentality throughout all of television history, we wouldn't have shows like The Office or Parks and Rec, two incredibly popular shows with notoriously weak first seasons. After their initial seasons, they realized what worked and what didn't, and both found their strides in season 2. So it is really sad that The Acolyte won't be given the same opportunity to find itself, where I absolutely believe that it could have. We've made it to the end. Woo woo. Okay, so thank you for sitting through all of this. I know this is incredibly long. So the big question is, how would I rank them? I feel like this is very obvious, but bam, number 1 Andor, number 2 Mandalorian, number 3 Acolyte, 4 Boba Fett, 5 Obi-Wan, 6 is Ahsoka. Boba Boba Fett and Obi-Wan are honestly interchangeable. I only ranked Boba Fett slightly higher because of the good Mandalorian episode within it. There is a big gap between the Acolyte and Boba Fett in terms of quality, in my book. Also, side note, The Acolyte is the only Star Wars show with an actual fucking title. Can we please stop naming shows after one character? That is really dumb and boring. It's also insane that Star Wars keeps trying to make these shows with legacy characters when the best show have completely original characters. If they're trying to copy the success of Mando season 1, then why are they doing the exact opposite of what that show did? But Mando kind of like morphed into something else that nobody really liked. So I don't know. Okay, we did it. That's the end. Thank you so much for sitting with me through all of this. I hope that this was entertaining. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, let me know. But or comments, concerns. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this. I clearly had a lot of fun putting this together. It took quite a little bit of work. But yeah, thank you so much.